Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. My name is Monique Zhou. I am the lead curriculum and instructional designer at GeoGebra. So welcome to the session on exploring the potential of digital interactive open math resources for the next generation. As I am continuing the introduction of this, feel free to go onto the geogebra.org website and either create an account or sign in. While most of the features that you see today, you will not be required to have an account in order to access a lot of these materials. It can be helpful for some of the features that we do play around with. Everything that we are using, all of the content and all of the features that we'll see and use is open and it's all free. So I just wanted to emphasize that and emphasize the accessibility of the materials that we will be using today. So for those of you who may be new to some of my sessions, what I like to talk about is the combination of free digital tools as well as open educational resources, how in the combination of those two, we can really empower instructors in their formative assessment. So just an introduction to the software and the platform that we'll be using. If you are unfamiliar with GeoGebra, GeoGebra is a math dynamic geometry software. The name GeoGebra comes from the combination of geometry and algebra, and hence the name GeoGebra. And the main thing to know about this platform is there are three main features. So the first, which is what GeoGebra is most known for since 2001, are some really nice graphing calculators. And then from that software of calculators, users can create their own files that they can share, they can upload. And we've created a community of resources and open resources that can be shared and used and collaborated on. And that is what we will mainly be focusing on today, which is those resources that we've created. But I'll also mention that there is a sharing feature that we'll use in order to really maximize the potential of just digital resources. So first off, I wanted to show just how you can access some of these resources online. So if you're at geogebra.org, on the homepage, there is a button here that is titled Math Resources. It's also takes you to the URL geogebra.org/math. And this is a new set of resources that GeoGebra has launched at the end of this summer. And so this is brand new. These are free ready-made resources for approximately grades 4 through 8 in the US, but these are all supplementary standalone materials. So these can be used, pick and choose however is needed, whether it is for warm-ups or for exit tickets, for interventions, things like that. And so we have hundreds of resources in algebra, geometry, measurement, number sense, operations, and probability and statistics. And all of these are broken down into all sorts of subtopics. And so just as an example, I'm going to show just how these resources are laid out and what you can look for in these types of digital interactive resources. So I clicked on the general topic of algebra, and as you can see, these are divided into approximately upper elementary, grades 4 and 5, and middle school, grades 6 through 8. I will click on equations, and in this topic of equations, we can see all sorts of materials by these cards, and each one is under a set of skills and some objectives that are included with it. And in each of the cards, you will notice that there is both, there are colored tags for what is an exploration and what is a practice. So the way that these materials are laid out is we may have something like this interactive exploration. And I will zoom in so you can get a little closer look. But this is a balancing scale activity in a linear equations activity. And as you can see, this is something that is just has instructions at the top. There's an equation of a line, and there's a pretty typical model of the balancing scales. And there are interactive components that are involved. So these aren't just static images, but we also have sliders. And this is a very open kind of, sorry, not open. This is a flexible instructional tool. So as a student, I might be able to just drag the slider. There is no right or wrong, so I don't get docked immediately just because I slid the slider to 5x, but this will turn green when I hit 2x and I start to follow the goal. You can keep going. And I can see, okay, well, I didn't quite model the equation, but there is an equal sign that does appear when I do model it correctly. And it appears. And then this is a two-parter, so I can click the solve button. And of course, I want to solve the equation, but I don't just give the answer right away, but there is an animation that will show and really describe and visualize what the steps are really doing in this balance beam. And so it's the great part about this interactivity is I can go back and forth as needed. I can click on new equation and it'll randomly generate another equation, and I can continue to look at multiple examples. And then for explorations underneath, there are some guiding questions. So then this can be used as a whole class discussion. So if my classroom didn't have one-to-one devices, then I could show this, project this on the screen, ask some questions. I can use these as seeder questions to start some discussions and have students discuss amongst themselves. It can bring up really interesting conversations as they're using the interactive. And I can ask them questions such as, what do you notice? What do you wonder? Or even, what do you predict will happen when I do this? And then we can try it all together and try and see how close that prediction was, why that prediction was reasonable, and many more questions like that. So this is an example of an exploration. I can also go back to the previous subtopic page, or I can scroll down and there are interlinking sections where I can look at prerequisite resources, more in the same kind of skill, and then even resources that are otherwise kind of following that or coming after that. And so then the ability to have all of these organized in these interlinking ways, just one of the powerful ways that digital resources can really be connected and really leveraged. So I'm going to show an example of, say, like a practice. So this is an example of a practice problem where there are right or wrong answers, and there are goals. And so there are points that we award. We generally don't, we designed this, my team designed this resource so that we don't track how many students get wrong, but instead we track what they get right. And so as an instructor, I can have my students continue to keep going until they get a certain number of points correct or a number right. So here's an example of something where, okay, now the students are applying their skills in entering something in input boxes. So maybe the hexagon is 2 because I look at the top row. If I look at this column, the value of a square is 4. And then the value of the pink circle, I believe, is 11. But let's try getting it wrong. So maybe I put 10 and I check. And then there's a try again. So then you also notice that there are hints that are built in. So it gives me a little bit of a scaffold to help me just with these. We have a 3 attempt system, but I'll just put in, oh, that wasn't quite it. Is it, oh, sorry, I typed the wrong, used the wrong numbers. But as you can see, this is like a formative experience. Like, even though there are right or wrong answers, there are many opportunities to try again and work on it again. So this one would be instead 7, right? And so then I get 1 point. I can try more puzzles that are randomly generated. So these here, as I've shown, are in-house created materials, and these are brand new for grades 4 through 8. And we're happy to have these just published and out there for people to use. Other ways to look up resources that are also OER is to just search for materials. So if there's something that is not covered by these in-house created materials, there's millions of community created resources. So I can either use the search bar and just search up a topic, or I can go to the tab on the side, click on resources. Oh, sorry. And it'll take me to this page, but I can scroll down and there is an explore button to explore community resources. So if you couldn't find what you were looking for, you can click that button. And there is a concept web if you wanted to browse certain concepts or just look at some of the thumbnails of other user-created resources. So for example, something like building surfaces with cross-sections. This may not be covered in upper elementary or middle school. And so this is something that another user created where they built their own questions. They created their own interactive applet. You can use this to explore, and it has interactive components. So this is there, can be used, and anything can be searched for. So if anyone has any particular subject that they're teaching, feel free to drop it in the chat and we can have a look and search it. But I also encourage you to search it for yourselves. So I might search up something like, I know that a lot of teachers I've talked to recently were covering graphing polynomials. So this is like a high school topic. And so then you can see as I just typed whatever topic in the search bar and all of these pop up. And I can click on them and these are all open for me to use. And I can find something that I might like. Some of these, of course, will not have the same style because they're created by different people, but they're still beneficial nonetheless. And so this is, these resources are great for if you want to just pop it up onto a screen and project it. And they're great for allowing students to just try out and explain even like what their thought process is. So this is fun to have. This is an activity on identifying angles, like whether they're acute, they're right, obtuse, they're straight angles. And you can put this up on the screen, and as teachers, we can have the students just say out loud, like, what do you want me to try? What do you want me to explore? And we can take a look. So if someone were to say, oh, let's look at the clock. Okay, let's look at the clock. Okay, you can see there's an obtuse angle in the clock. Can I look at the scissors and do that? And there's no like, we can really encourage just like a try it and see type of attitude where you don't have to be afraid of just exploring. I personally have a little bit of a computer science background, and when we're programming, we are very happy to have testers who just try and break things because we want to just make things work really well. So I encourage teachers to encourage their students, just have them try anything, have them try and break anything. And some really interesting discussions can come out of it. But let's say we're on a material and you're in a classroom where all the students had their own devices and you wanted to work on them to work separately, or even assign it as something outside of the classroom. On the top here, we have integrations with Google Classroom, if you happen to use Google Classroom, but if you don't have Google Classroom, then there's a built-in thing called GeoGebra Classroom. And so I can click this. I can create basically a live lesson where I can invite students in to use it. So I am going to change the way I share my screen now and pull up an extra window so we can have a look together. So again, feel free to try these things on your own. You do need an account in order to have this teacher dashboard. But otherwise, you can, even as a student, you don't need to have an account unless you would like your work to be saved. But I just pasted a link in the chat. Feel free to join that. I will also show how on the left-hand side is the teacher dashboard. On the right side, I have an incognito tab, so I can mimic what it's like to be a student. And I can either go directly into this link, which has been pasted into an LMS, or I can go to geogebra.org/classroom, or I can go to the homepage, select the menu, the 3-line menu, and go to Classroom. And I can just type in this code here. There doesn't need to be any caps or spaces. And join and input a name. So it's if the students have accounts, then their name automatically gets put in. This helps for so you don't have random people, random names appearing in the classroom. But I will just put student for now. And so as I see that a handful of you have already started and trying it out on your end. I can see Kate and Susan have already started working and looking. I see that the account that I logged in as and Carolyn, we haven't started yet. And so that's why the thumbnails are like this. But then as soon as I start to interact, then the thumbnails change and I can see you interacting and working on that. This is fun because I see the thumbnails, but I can also click in and I can just get a snapshot of what you were on. So I saw that Susan was working on an acute angle. Great. I really like using this button. When I click pause, usually when we're in person or in a classroom of students, there's a audible groans or ahs that happen. And that's fun because it shows just how engaged the students are because they actually get to interact with the resources and the math. I'm gonna click on resume so y'all can keep going. And I can also hide and anonymize the names. So this is great because it's also another opportunity for classroom discussion. So I can project this onto a board. We can have a conversation about, okay, what do you notice about what everyone is doing right now? What is everyone observing right now? Maybe there are some misconceptions that we can address. And so we can pull up one specific example and no student feels singled out because this is anonymous. And then we might work on it together. So these snapshots are actually, we can interact with it after. It doesn't change what the student is working on. But it's great to kind of lead on and show, okay, from here, what can we do? Yeah, and then in general, it's also just great for monitoring the classroom. So if you have students working and you notice that they've been working on the same problem for the last like 5 minutes, then you can go and check in on them so you can walk up to them and say, hey, I noticed that you were here. Do you need any help? Or maybe they were just distracted and you can get their attention. Okay. So that is the classroom feature and the resources. At this point, are there any questions? You can feel free to type in the chat or type in the Q&A, and I'm happy to find a good point in this talk in order to address those. Okay. So at this point in the session, what I like to do is I will go back to a main screen. And I know for all of you who are here, why don't we just go to the homepage? Again, you don't have to be logged on to look up the resources and to go to these links, see them and interact with them or anything like that, or share them. It's only when you want to share them in that classroom with that teacher dashboard and where you need to have an account. But I will encourage you all to go to the homepage, go to the math resources, and look for something that you can use anytime soon. Just find one, and if you have one that you really like or think is really cool, please paste it in the chat and share it so that all of us can get a chance to see what you've discovered. Also, feel free to use the search bar and search up something. So for any of you who are just joining in, who hopped in a little bit later, we're on GeoGebra.org, and we're looking at some of the OER math resources that are interactive. And there are just a huge repository of them. And so we're going to have a look at what you all might be able to find and what you can use in your classroom setting or whatever instructional setting that you have. So again, just explore, take these couple minutes to browse through them, click on any, and then paste any that you find interesting into the chat. Thanks, Susan. Let me see if I can. Okay. Pull it up. So I see you found something to do with solids and calculus. Nice. This is created using a 3D calculator. So our engine, the calculator engine that I mentioned earlier, does handle 3D. This is cool. So this is fun because you can see a rotation around an axis. And again, this is all just someone in the math community created it. And you can use it. Oh, this is fun. It's great for look. I see that the cross section of this is highlighted. Yeah. Okay. I should be mindful of time. So again, if you see anything in particular that you really like, please paste it in the chat. I'm happy to see anything that you find and are really curious and excited about. But I also wanted to mention, so if you have an account, a few tips and tricks that might help you is if you are on a resource and you wanted to save it somewhere, you don't want to change it at all, you want to just save it, the link for later. If you click on the 3-dot menu at the top, you can actually add it to your favorites. And then on the 3-line menu on the left, you can go to your profile. And from your profile, you can see anything that is saved. So here is actually the classroom I created with the little teacher dashboard. So that's there. So I can always come back to this link. But here under favorites is the activity that I just saved. So this is here. I want to do that. So now in regards to what I can do with these digital resources, I wanted to show now what it looks like to kind of curate some of these resources and kind of put things together and remix them a little. So here is on my profile. So if you're on the home page, on the left sidebar, which can be accessed through this 3-line menu, is your profile. And there's a button here to create. And here I can create a book. And a book is like a collection of activities. So here is an example book. I will save. And from here, I can click on add activity and I can search up activities from here. And I can add them in directly, or I can add them into the book directly. But usually what you might be doing is you might be browsing some resources and you might come across something and you might have them open in new tabs. I'll pick up a few different ones. I'm just right-clicking and opening them up in new tabs. So say I'm on the website and I find some interesting materials and I want to put them all together in a sequence. One trick is that you can actually search for it here, or you can go to the URL, and each of the URLs have a unique 8-digit code that's stuck onto the end of it. The code that's at the very end points to the material, like the specific material. So even if someone were to make a copy and make some edits or change things up, then you can still access the version that you are most interested in. And so I like to just double click on that kind of section of the URL. That's the trick, to just only copy those 8 digits at the end. And I'm going to copy it and I can paste it into the search bar. And the search bar can actually locate that activity on the site. So I can like look at the thumbnail, see, oh, this is the one that I want. This is made by the GeoGebra content team, which is the author that I was looking at. And then I can click add. And there it is. I can add some more by, again, copying a little code at the end, adding it there. Let's do one more just so that there's enough for a book. Can have one activity, but we can also have many, many activities. And then I can organize these by just dragging around. Just click and drag to reorder them. I can delete one if I wanted to with the trash can button. I can add a chapter. So I can organize these by, say, section. So maybe there's like a certain topic that I wanted to cover, and I wanted to divide those up into subtopics. Here might be a chapter. There might be a chapter. And there are more details I can fill in if I had a desire to. Then I can maybe take this and then drop it in there. And so now I have them broken up. And then I can click the View Book button just to see what it looks like. So what this book, this collection looks like is all of the pages put together of different resources. So this is just an easier way of, curating and putting together. Well, there's this really good standalone resource. There's this really good standalone resource. But I want to now put them together so that they come in a certain order that's actually beneficial instructionally, and I can sequence them. And then this entire book can also be assigned as like a classroom. So I can click this assign button and I can create a code. And then here's like a classroom for this entire book. And it has everything all together in one place in one link. So this is great because if I can go to my profile, and here's the book that I made. This one's the lesson with the code, but this is the book, the original material that I kind of, or the book, the collection that I put together. And I can actually click this button multiple times and I can assign this one book to multiple sections of my class. And I can see what each class is doing and monitor them as their own groups. But what I can also do is I can also edit the book as well. So I can click on the 3-dot menu on the link to the book. I can click edit book. Yeah, and then I can also maybe I add another chapter. Maybe I wanted to add something to the end. So maybe my students are working on something and I wanted to throw in something as an exit ticket. I can just add another activity while they're working on their classroom. And then I can have them refresh the page. And then it'll appear at the end. So that's one way where, okay, I don't have to now like run to the copier and print out, you know, more activities or anything like that. Here's something where I have the link already and I can have this something that I found, and then I can just continue to add it so my students can work more. And a few ways that I like to, use this like classroom setting with with a collection of resources is to continue to add materials. If a student finishes sooner, I can add it for them. And then it's just a reference. So then I leave the link open, I leave it unpaused, and the students can use it to prepare for a test. Or I can do is I can create this link, I can put into their LMS, whatever they're using. I can hit pause, and then the students aren't allowed to work on it until we're in class, and then I resume, and then we work on it together. Something I can also do is this, there's a share button at the top right. I can click on that, and there's a way to add co-teachers as well. So maybe there's a teacher that you're working on together with. Maybe you have one section, they have one section. Then they can monitor the same group of students, or even work on maybe you have like a substitute teacher who's coming in. You can like add them here, and then they don't have to prepare all the links if they're not familiar with the platform. And then another tip is here in this book, I can go to the 3-dot menu and go to a details page. And I can go to access settings, and I can add other users to also be able to edit just this collection of books. So if you're working for a district and you have a certain curriculum that you're helping to create for a district, this is one way to do that. There's also a way to create just a temporary editing link. So you send this link over. Here, add whatever thing you saw, whatever cool material you saw, add a page to it, and then you can uncheck it, and then it's like closed again, where then there's they are unable to edit this particular instance of the collection. Okay. Great. At this point, are there any other questions? Anything, any cool resources that anyone wanted to share? Yeah, have a look at. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm just going to keep on going. And so now we took a look at a lot of ways to keep materials, distribute them. We've learned how to curate tools and redistribute those. Now let's look at how we might be able to, say, edit some of these materials and be able to personalize and customize it. So one of the resources that we might look at is a community resource. There is on the GeoGebra website, an instance of the illustrative map curriculum. And you can see they have many different pages that link to the activities. I'll just select this one. And so there's a instance of the middle school curriculum, the high school curriculum, and there's also a resource collection for the K-5 curriculum. But I will just select the middle school curriculum, and as an example, I'll use grade 7, under grade 7. Let's see. I know that using operations with positive and negative integers can be difficult. So why don't we use that as an example, adding and subtracting some of these rational numbers. And so here's like another book with a lesson and a practice page. And so if I use this curriculum and I wanted to supplement it with some other standalone resources, then I might want to make an edit it. So I'm going to make a copy of it. How I do this is I go to the 3-dot menu in the top right. I can copy this activity. And then here it is. It's opened up in an editor where I can change the title. So I might put Monique's copy, and maybe I'll put like a section or school name. I can scroll down, and each of these questions are individual elements that I can drag and drop if I wanted to reorder them. I can click on the little pencil icon or just click directly in it, and I can make edits. Sometimes it's fun to just customize with like student names or more culturally relevant contexts. And then I can also use this button here to copy a question. And what that does is it puts the question at the very bottom. And again, I can like reorder and put it where I want to. There's also a trash can button, so I can delete that and remove questions. Maybe it's just a lesson or a resource I see is a little long, or there's certain instructions that I don't need. I can go in and pare that down. And then what I can also do is I can also add elements. So there's a button at the bottom titled Add Elements. I can click on that. I can add my own text. So I can add more instructions or explanations. I can add videos. Usually can embed like YouTube links or something, or and then you can insert an image. You can upload like PDF handouts, embed web links. You can add more questions. And there's like a open question and multiple choice options. And then the two most interesting elements that I think is fun to add to these resources is one is notes. So what this opens up is a smaller version of the GeoGebra Notes app. So a GeoGebra Notes, I can hit done. This is like a whiteboarding tool that you can put. I'm going to save this very quickly. But what this whiteboarding tool does is it allows students to, you can have them use it for scratch work. You can have them use it to explain something, have them work on some sort of creative task with it. And you can leave it as is, or what you can do is you can create like an initial starting state for them. So there's a pen tool. So maybe I draw something out. I might want to use some of the shape tools. Also in this tab, there's some media tools where there's ways to just embed text, create tables, insert an equation where the virtual keyboard kind of pops up. So you can have students write things in a math format. I know typing math can sometimes be difficult and slow them down, but that's a way to help them insert math. You can also insert like GeoGebra calculator in there for them to show some of their work. Yeah, and there's also other like video, audio, PDF, like image features. So I have seen teachers pasting pictures onto their like whiteboard and having students like circle or explain like which one doesn't belong, or have them draw how they're feeling in a day, and that's what their day looked like, what their involvement is with math, and what their math identity is. And there's also a way to embed like graspable math if you're familiar with that. It's an interactive algebraic notation kind of activity. So that's GeoGebra notes, and one way to insert and embed that into an activity. Another thing that you can add is you can add a specific GeoGebra applet. So for example, maybe it's similar to when we created a book. You can search up some materials that you like. You can also search up the individual applets like these and insert them into your own materials. So again, I can search for something and add it directly. So maybe I'll just add this as an example here. That's there. And it's just, I hit done and it's just embedded right there. And then you're able to see it. So there's an icon where I'm going to right click on this icon. It just allows me to open up this version and I can see what it looks like as is with everything. And you can see the little whiteboarding element that I added, as well as this applet, which I added. That's someone else in the community made. I can also edit this and I can replace the applet here. So maybe since we are adding and subtracting integers, I might look for something about adding and subtracting. Yeah, like this practice here. I can add this in. I can hit done. Something I could also do is like, let me close out some of these tabs. But let's say I also found something that I really liked. Like this here is a game that someone made where you start and it's timed. So I'm trying to click on the correct answer in time. Let's say I am not good at this, and then there it is. I can copy actually this 8-digit code and use this trick in here as well. So I can add this element. I can click on GeoGebra and I can search for it using the code. And this embeds it right in there. And so this is a great way to add not just any other interactivity, but if you would like to add a little bit of gamification into your lessons. I'm going to refresh my page and you'll see, there it is. So this can be fun, like to embed a game in the beginning of a lesson, use it as like a warm up. You can embed it at the end, towards the end of the class time, and use it as like a little reward. Like, you've learned all of this, now time to practice it, and it's a little fun thing to do. You can also assign it in GeoGebra Classroom and have the students, you can use the teacher dashboard to use it as a leaderboard. So students can just like play around and they see who gets the highest score in that amount of time. And then that's just one way to use gamification to practice some of their more procedural skills. Yes. Okay. So that is one way to kind of customize and edit. And I believe since this is recorded, if you had any questions about how to walk through some of those steps, I know I went pretty fast, but since this is recorded, you can go back and watch the recording. And then one last thing I think I have time for is I can also show you if you wanted to create your own like worksheet material activity from scratch, you can actually go to your profile, and again, you'll see everything that you created. So some of the classrooms I've created, the books I've created, here's the copy of the resource that I just made. this is all there. I can use the create button and I can create my own activity. And this will open up a blank activity page. So this is an activity I'm making from scratch. Let's see, I might, and then if you are familiar with the graphing calculator on GeoGebra, you can actually upload kind of your own activities and things like that. But I know that as instructors, sometimes there's not a lot of time to be able to make your own things or download files and try and figure out how things work and make super custom interactions. So instead, I'll teach you a few tricks on how to actually edit some of those interactive applets. So here's an example of something. If you happen to work in, like, say, elementary school, I will show you. Yeah, so here is an example of a hundreds grid that someone made. So this is just someone else created this. Why don't I save this as well? And then I will open it in a new tab so you know what it looks like just as is. Now this is something that someone else created. And it's a pretty nifty tool. It's a pretty common model. And say like you're working on skip counting. You might add some activities at the top just to help students with addition. But once they're done with that, you can have this paste it in and encourage your students, hey, with this activity, just let's build some digital literacy. Play around with this. What do you think it can do? So maybe we'll start together and say, like, call on people in the class and have them, or chime in and say, all right, I don't know, like, it looks like there are buttons. Okay, like, which button would you like me to select? And we'll select the directions. Okay, cool. Like, we can see that this button has directions. Okay. Select the other button. You can do that. And we can see, oh, okay, what do you notice about this? Oh, the numbers change. And then we can start a discussion. How do the numbers change? What are some other ways the numbers could change? And what difference would that make? Here we have input boxes. So maybe someone notices that, oh, like, I click on this because it looks like a button, but it's not a button. Okay, looks like we can type in here. So maybe we type in some numbers and see what it does. Hit go. And then now that this looks like this grid is lighting up with different colors. And then looks like this is another button to reset. That's great. And so you might have this blank one here, and maybe I will edit this. So I clicked on the frame of this applet, and maybe I just add a heading like find your favorite pattern. So done, and save that. And you can have students actually kind of just explore and discover, like, okay, as I'm putting in different numbers into this input box, what patterns can I see? What does this do? Like, yeah, now I notice that when I count by twos, it makes columns. Or what makes, if I count by, let me reset this, and then if I count by sevens, how do I know which one is next in the pattern? Something that students might not notice right away is you can actually just click directly on the grid. And so that might be something that you would cover, something like this. And then you can make copies of these. And what you can do is you can actually edit this applet. And there's a bunch of controls at the top. If you're familiar with the calculators, then this will be familiar to you. But if you are not familiar with calculators, you don't have to worry. You don't have to touch those. That's kind of like an advanced workshop type of deal. But what you can do is you can actually select some of these elements, and you can right click on them. So maybe I don't want to show them the directions. So I can right click on the button and uncheck show object. Maybe I don't want them to play with offsetting by 1. So I do that. And then I just have them play with only the input boxes and the buttons. What I could do is I could use this to say seed it. So maybe I go 3 to 100. I want to count by 3. I can hit go, and then I can select these, each of these, some of these, and then I say, okay, like maybe in the instructions, I ask the students now to finish the pattern. And so they have to select the boxes to finish the pattern. So then I would just hide some of these other objects and then have them work on this. So I can hit done. And so as you can see, I can change the starting state of each of these elements. Let's see. Did I hit? Oh, I haven't saved it yet. So I can save this. And refresh the page and it'll save. And there it is. It's like a changed copy. So this is a copy. I changed the state of the copy and then I saved it and it starts off in that initial state. So that's something that you can do. And then from here, it shows up in your profile. You can create a class out of it. You can create a folder to organize everything. So here's that folder. I can drag some of these materials into the folders to organize them, and I can put folders in folders. Yeah, so those are just some of the features that I wanted to show that really emphasize how you can really take digital online materials and make edits, make changes, customize them, and really fit them to suit your teaching needs. And this is all just available and ready for you to use. Okay, there's a few minutes left. If there are any questions, I will take them. Now is the time. Okay. I will give them some time in case anyone wanted to type it out. But I also wanted to just show, if you have questions about kind of what to do, or you are just interested in learning more about what you can do on the platform, there is on the homepage, the very bottom, a Learn GeoGebra link. And from here, there are resource collections, recorded webinars, tutorials, other social media groups. And that can kind of help you get started just being more involved. And then I will put my contact information here. Feel free to contact me. And just if you have any questions, just let me know that you heard my session from here from the Open Ed conference. I have been, oh, thanks for the question, Susan. I have been at GeoGebra for the last 3 years, but I actually was just another member of the community since 2014. I used GeoGebra since 2014 in some classes, and then I worked at a nonprofit where I ended up using GeoGebra as a power user since 2017. And I ended up I created a lot of my own resources. And now I work for GeoGebra with my own team to make the high quality resources that you see on the website here. So this is like also props to my team for all of their work with this. I think that's about it.